Concerned what it hit for, cause I've still come to raise hell like Mephisto. Please don't front, cause I'll karate chop your lymph node. Noodle arm punk, you punch and end up with your wrist.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. And today we're going to be talking about CM Punk, John Cena. The storyline from June to August 2011. This encompasses the Pipebomb promo. Due to my own sanity, we will not go past SummerSlam because I know it gets kind of confusing after that. So we're going to tell the story through 3-act structure. Then I'm going to break it down through the David Mamet questions. And if necessary, we'll go through some sort of change arcs, which is more of a KM Weiland thing. So let's get started. So we begin with the Pipebomb promo, June 27th, 2011. This is where CM Punk airs his grievances against the WWE about their marketing, their promotion of various wrestlers, himself first and foremost. This is where he says that when Vince McMahon dies, it's going to be left to his idiotic daughter and his doofus son-in-law. Criticisms of John Laurinaitis about being, a yes man and Cena and all these kind of things. And that things need to change. This is the beginning of change. This begins the storyline. This is the beginning of the first act. So what happens next week? July the 4th, John Cena comes out there, tells everybody that CM Punk has been suspended and that Vince McMahon has been the one to suspend CM Punk. But he doesn't want CM Punk suspended because he wants to fight him at Money in the Bank. Following this, Mr. McMahon comes out and says that CM Punk wanted too much money on his contract. And, of course, Cena calls him out on that, says that, that doesn't mean anything. You're made of money. And then he says the real reason why he suspended CM Punk is because he doesn't want John Cena to lose the title and for CM Punk to leave the company as the champion. John Cena then hands over the WWE title to Vince McMahon and says, hey, if you think I'm going to lose and he's just going to walk out of here with the title, then you've made this championship meaningless. If I can't defend it, if you don't believe in me, this title is worthless. So Vince McMahon gives the belt back and says, okay, I will reinstate CM Punk, but here's the thing. If you lose, then you're fired. So if Cena loses, Cena is going to get fired. The next week, July 11th, 2011, CM Punk and John Cena do a promo in the ring where Punk calls the WWE brass shameless ass kissers. And Vince McMahon wants him to sign a contract because he made WWE mainstream relevant all over again. Cena is, of course, kind of upset, because Punk thinks he's a pushover. And he says, look, a lot of guys thought like you. Thought they were the best wrestlers in the world and that I couldn't hang. Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, all these guys thought that I couldn't hang. They were greatly disappointed. I can hold my own. Later in the show, they do the contract signing segment where Vince McMahon is sitting with CM Punk. Punk talks about how biased McMahon is towards Cena, saying that he should be wearing one of those rainbow-colored shirts, and that what he wants out of this contract is he wants everything. He wants his face on cups, he wants ice cream bars, he wants his face on the turnbuckles, on the ring, and he wants an apology. Vince says that, look, you can have pretty much whatever you want, but you need to sign this contract, and I really don't want to do public contract negotiations. At some point, Cena comes out. Punk then says that, Cena used to be like the Boston Red Sox. He used to be an underdog. But now he's become a dynasty, which is what Cena hates. And Cena, of course, shoves him to the ground. And in all the commotion of Cena and Punk, the contract does not get signed. So at the end of the first act, we have CM Punk winning the WWE Championship at Money in the Bank in a very classic match in Chicago. And it was awesome. The date was July 17th, 2011. So then we begin the second act, as the title is now gone, and now we have new claimants. So July 18th, 2011, Vince McMahon calls CM Punk an ingrate, says that we'll never see him again, and that he's going to begin a tournament to crown a new champion, and he's going to punish John Cena. So the tournament begins, and the final is Rey Mysterio versus The Miz. This title match is postponed to the next week because Vince wants to deal with Cena right now. Cena says, look, he didn't want to screw CM Punk because he didn't want to get put in the same position as Shawn Michaels. That Shawn Michaels, for how great he was, is really mostly known for screwing Bret Hart. And he did not want to be that guy. So he says, I gave the guy what he wanted, a straight up one-on-one match, and I'm not going to be your patsy. So Vince is about to fire John Cena. What ends up happening, Triple H comes out, they do the old, I'm sorry, Pop, and the board of directors has voted no confidence on Vince McMahon. So John Cena will not get fired. Instead, Vince McMahon has been fired, and he's now being sent home. Triple H is now taking over. July 25th, 2011. Rey Mysterio wins the WWE Championship in the very first match on Raw. He would lose it to John Cena in the main event of the show. So Cena, this is where we get the brilliant rebranding of CM Punk. He comes out with a new theme. He's got new merchandise. He's got, new confidence. He's now officially a huge babyface. And this is where we get the wonderful visual storytelling of John Cena with the title being held up, and then CM Punk, his body language is that he's standing up straight, far more confident stance. He's got the belt up, and Cena kind of droops his title. And it's a wonderful visual storytelling that a lot of people didn't really catch on to, that I'm glad that they actually did, because it tells us a really great story about Cena being sort of an interim champion, but CM Punk being sort of the real champion. So this where we began CM Punk's rebirth. August the 1st, 2011, CM Punk realizes that he can't change WWE from his couch. So he says, hey, as soon as I left, the status quo came right back. I left, the title ended up right back on Cena. And Triple H says, look, hey, I didn't want to let a hot commodity like you get away, so that's why I made the deal to bring you back. But, without WWE and a microphone, you really are kind of nothing. And CM Punk says, well, Triple H is a spotlight hog and a bully in a suit. This is where Triple H famously calls CM Punk skinny fat, says he would have slapped all the tattoos off of him, but he respects the title and he's not going to do that. And then Johnny Ace comes out and wants to strip John Cena of the WWE title. Cena gets into it with Johnny Ace, calls Johnny Ace a yes man, refuses to be stripped. Triple H then says, okay, enough of this. We're going to have champion versus champion at SummerSlam for the undisputed WWE Championship. This is the end of Act 2. The beginning of Act 3 starts with Triple H announcing himself as the special guest referee for the champion versus champion match at SummerSlam. This is August the 8th, 2011. On this very same show, CM Punk defeated Alberto Del Rio. They did a contract signing for the SummerSlam main event, where Cena calls CM Punk a phony and says, hey, a couple of weeks ago, you wanted ice cream bars and a private jet. You wanted to be a superstar. Now you come back and you say you're the voice of the voiceless. You're some underdog. You're phony. And Punk says, well, Cena, you look down on everyone. You never really spoke to me before, and for all your hustle, loyalty, and respect, and all your you never give up, you gave up on your dream of being a bodybuilder in order to become a wrestler. And CM Punk, then John Cena responds that all the pressure is on CM Punk. That you finally gotten what you always wanted. You wanted all of this. You wanted to be the top guy. Now you're the top guy. The pressure is on. That if you don't win at SummerSlam, you become much like Buster Douglas or Milli Vanilli. If you don't produce at SummerSlam, all of this will be for nothing. And then the end of the third act, the end of the story, is that CM Punk wins the undisputed title and then immediately loses it to Alberto Del Rio, and things get confusing as hell from there. So this was a very good story up until, Kevin Nash and all these people started getting involved. Then it went off the rails. But the David Mamet questions, let's talk about that real quick. Because one of the things that we have to discuss when we talk about stories is, what did the characters want? Now, there's a lot of characters in this situation. There's Triple H, Vince, Punk, Cena, all of them want something, right? So from CM Punk's position, he wants not only the WWE title, but he wants the proper recognition, right? From both the fans and the office. Because part of the pipe bomb was CM Punk saying that, blaming the fans for, being the people who sided with John Cena, who gives him these big reactions, for buying all this stuff that CM Punk is not a part of. And that's kind of a forgotten part of the pipe bomb, is that CM Punk was a heel when he cut this promo. and that part of this heel promo was blaming the fans for making John Cena John Cena. John Cena wants to prove himself. He wants to say, "Hey, I'm a real champion. I'm not just some corporate puppet. I'm just a guy, willing to fight anybody, willing to put everything on the line." Vince wants the title to stay in the company. He doesn't want anybody to lose the title. He doesn't want John Cena to lose it and end up screwing the company. No, that's his responsibility as the chairman of the board, is to make sure that the title stays in the company. But it's really interesting here because CM Punk starts this story as a heel, and because of that, he has this enormous amount of pride. He talks about being the best in the world and all that kind of stuff. But he's an underdog. He's behind the 8 ball because Cena is Cena. He wasn't wrong when he said that John Cena is essentially a dynasty and was the biggest star in the business and all that kind of stuff. So, point 2, we got the desire down. We got the desires of the guys down. So part 2 is the obstacles. What's standing in their way? Well, for CM Punk, it's John Cena. Huge obstacle named John Cena. He has to actually defeat John Cena to win the title. To get all the recognition and everything that he wants, he has to go through Cena first. But he also has to go through Vince, because Vince has a history of screwing people over. Again, we talked about Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. We talked about various other people. You can talk about Wendy Richter and the Fabulous Moolah. These kind of situations, Vince just has a habit of dealing with these problems. And then also Johnny Ace or John Laurinaitis, which you could just shrink down to The Office, because you also can include Triple H in that. So those are the obstacles for CM Punk. He has to overcome The Office. He has to overcome Cena. For Cena, he just has to prove himself. He just has to defeat CM Punk. And for Vince, it's just make sure the title stays in the company, however that happens. Whether that's CM Punk signs a new contract, whether that's John Cena wins. So since he, of course, failed to force CM Punk to sign a new contract, then he failed again when when CM Punk won the title and then left. That put him in a very bad situation. This leads to the third instance. What happens if they don't get it? Well, Vince didn't get what he should have gotten, which is CM Punk to sign a new contract or John Cena to win the match. And he got relieved of his duties. So that was a very big stake for Vince. There were stakes for everybody involved in this. For Cena, if he didn't win, he was going to get fired. Now, he ended up getting saved from not being fired because Triple H kind of came in and saved him. For CM Punk, then you have a situation where nothing changes. Or if he would have lost to John Cena, then everything he said in the Pipebomb promo would have just continued. The status quo would have remained the same, and the WWE machine would have just moved on. So the fourth point is a why now? The time-bound question. Why is all this taking place right now? So, of course, the time-bound question makes perfect sense here because CM Punk is leaving. His contract is up July the 17th, whether he wins the title or not. Whether he's even in the title match or not. His contract is up July 17th. So everything has to come together July the 17th. That was a huge night because it made sense. It were stakes for everybody involved. And it was a great story. It was a great story up until this point. The big Money in the Bank match, which was huge. And it was bigger than the SummerSlam match. So for CM Punk, he did go through a change. He went through a positive change. He was a heel at first, complaining about himself. He wanted something for himself. When you look at what a positive change arc is if you start out kind of as a rogue or as a bad guy, and over time you become something better. CM Punk started out as a prideful heel who wanted all of these things for himself. He wanted candy bars with his own face on it. He wanted posters with his own face on it. He wanted to be promoted. He was jealous of John Cena. He wanted what John Cena wanted. By the end of the story, by SummerSlam, when he actually defeated John Cena to become the champion, CM Punk was now saying, okay, it was bigger than me. When I said what I said, it became bigger than me. I became the voice of the fans. So he learned through that trajectory that it wasn't just about him and his desire to be the champion. It was also he has a responsibility to the audience to go out there and speak on their behalf. That's why he came back, right? He came back to be the voice of the audience. You can't change things by sitting at home. John Cena had a flat arc, what's called a flat arc. in a flat arc, you don't change, but you force the changes in others. So Cena, by just being John Cena, forced this change into CM Punk because he's the wall CM Punk has to get over. And CM Punk, or Cena could have screwed Punk and cost him the title, but Cena is Cena. So he's not going to do that. Cena could have helped CM Punk. He didn't want to do that either. He has his own pride as a champion to maintain. And of course, Vince is always Vince. Vince is also in a flat arc. He's going to do what he does. And because he was evil Mr. McMahon at the time, there was no changes made to him. So this is the story. This was excellent. Of course, we all know it went off the rails after SummerSlam, but this was great. I remember watching this. This was awesome. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, donate to the channel. Thank you guys for your time, and I'll talk to you guys later.